steel is in principle everywhere, is pervading really our society and our daily life. Resources. Steel is, it can use many resources, but it can also provide many resources. It gives also support to the critical raw material needs through the circular economy. Critical raw materials, for example, are also nickel, manganese, and even coking coal. That is one of the fundamental elements that are used in the blast furnaces, though it is in the process of being replaced. But anyhow, various critical raw materials are also involved. However, in all among all the indicators, the most critical one is the environment because of the CO2 emission. And we have to remember that the steel industry is responsible for around 5% of the CO2 emission, and at least worldwide, and 7%, in the European Union, and 7% globally, 7% worldwide. So the impact is pretty much important, and we have really to tackle that, and we will do that through the research program based on the policies of the European Union, and we will now go slowly through that. So coal and steel are at the foundation of the European Union, and here we go back really to the Schuman Declaration of 1950, where really coal and steel were brought as let's say an element of peace in Europe, to unify Europe after the Second World War. Terms of funding. So here is what we have at the moment for funding for at annual level for the RFCS. We have to remember that the RFCS is covering coal and steel. So first of all, let's remember that when we are talking about this 40 million of the annual coal, there is a specific percentage that is allocated to steel and a specific one to coal. For steel, we have 72.8% of the funding, and 27.2% is dedicated to coal. So at the moment, this discussion is dedicated in principle to steel, so we look into that. Out of the 40 millions of the annual coal, about 29 millions are dedicated exclusively to steel research, so to steel proposal and projects. Then we have 71 million annually that are dedicated to the big ticket coal, which are large pilot and demonstration projects, large dedicated really coals. These are specifically the coals, so the big ticket is specifically the coal for which we define annually the research objectives for example, for 2023, we have defined the research objective for 2024. These are dedicated coals. And out of the 71 million, 52 million are dedicated to the clean steel. And they are actually, according to the legislation of 2021-1094, falling under the European Partnership. So the Clean Steel Partnership has been created under the frame of Horizon Europe, and it has been created in 2021. Actually, the Memorandum of Understanding has been signed on the 9th of August of 2021, and is bringing together a private side represented by ESTE, so the European Steel Technology Platform, and a public side represented by the GRTD and DG GROW. So DG GROW is also co-lead for us in the Clean Steel Partnership. There is a budget of about 700 million for the period 21-27 that are coming from the European Commission. And the challenge of this partnership is really to reduce, to tackle this energy-intensive industry, which is the steel industry, and reduce the emission that are coming from this industry, reduce them massively up to 95% by 2050. The objective of the Clean Steel Partnership are mentioned in the SRIA, which is the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. The present SRIA is, so the main objective is to reduce the CO2 emission by 2050 between 80 and 95%. And then there are specific objectives for 1 to 6. There are the 6 specific objectives that they go from enabling steel production through carbon direct avoidance, to look into carbon capture, developing also new technologies for smart carbon usage, looking into the recycling, the circular economy is extremely important, demonstrating also clean steel breakthrough technology contributed to climate neutral steel making. This means also DRI, for example, electrolysis, going towards, let's say, the CO2 neutral steel production. So even the hydrogen use is all involved under Objective 5. And then the Objective 6 about strengthening the global competitiveness of the EU steel industry in line with the industrial strategy of Europe. So concerning the source of funding, we go back a moment to see what are the funding dedicated to the Clean Steel Partnership. We have 300, and these are funding for the period 21-27. We have 350 million out of Horizon Europe and 350 million out of the RFCS. I remind you again, the RFCS is including only the big ticket. So this 350 million is in principle coming from accounting of about 50 million per year for the big ticket over the 7 years of the project, of the framework program. And there is 1 billion in private funding that is committed from the private side, meaning in this case from the industry, from the private participation, from the members of ESTEP, that is coming into, normally is highlighted to us into an additional activity plan that the Clean Steel Partnership presents on an annual basis. And this plan has to support and implement what is done, then what is achieved already through the project that the stakeholders are submitting. So it's a combination, it's really common work between private side, stakeholders, partnerships, so we are all together to try to achieve the goal of 2020-50. However, I was speaking so far about the Green Deal, but there is not only the Green Deal. And in recent years, we have now slowly other pieces of policy and legislation coming into place. And one of them is the REPowerEU. The REPowerEU is also influencing the steel industry because it's asking for 30% of EU primary steel production by 2030 to be based on renewable hydrogen. Hydrogen is a big deal at the moment in the steel industry, not only because it's going to guarantee the functioning of is in principle the focus of the next round of technologies that are coming up, but also because there are the missing infrastructure. So the steel industry is actually facing quite a dilemma in this respect because they want to go toward hydrogen, but at the same time, the quantity of hydrogen available and the infrastructure still have to grow. And this is really another huge work that the European Union has to face. Then we have the Net Zero Industry Act. This is a focus that will come up also in the big ticket in 2024, and especially because of the applications of steel. The Net Zero Industry Act addresses various renewable energies, as well as at the moment the modular nuclear reactor, so the nuclear is also mentioned in the Net Zero Industry Act. And all of these technologies, in one way or another, rely on steel. So we need to create also a steel market for these technologies and steel capabilities that are based in Europe. And then we have the Critical Raw Material Act. As mentioned before, manganese, nickel, silicon, as well as coking coal are mentioned in the Critical Raw Material Act. And steel is a user as well as a contributor to these materials. So it's enormously important to consider also the recovery of this material out of the circular economy approach in steel.